Hi, everyone.
Hi, David.
Good afternoon. I'm David Shirkey, and thanks a lot for joining. Even we're having a dual meeting here. We got about 7 or 8 people in the room here, and I think what we're going to do is me and each of my, mobile home park partners are going to take a couple minutes to just do a brief introduction in front of the laptop, and then we'll just ask if anybody has any questions or anything. And I think the webinar portion of this might not go too long, and just because it's a little different from, mingling in person. but hopefully you guys can get a feel for each of these, what I call mobile home park pros. And then you have their bio and information, and you can, if you're interested, you can get a hold of them and go from there. So like I mentioned, I'm David, and I've been grateful to be a part of BIG for several years. And for pretty much since 2017, the asset class that I've kind of been very enamored by is the mobile home park space. And so I guess I've spent a lot of time cultivating relationships with, maybe not smaller, but smaller and newer, operators who are still taking on capital from, accredited investors like people in BIG and that kind of thing. And so I've actually invested in 15 mobile home park deals. 2 of them are funds, and 13 of them are, specific park syndications. And I've been able to invest with 8 different operators. And these 3 who you're going to meet today, I've invested with each of them at least twice, 2, 3, and 4 times. And I just have a lot of confidence and feel very comfortable introducing them to other investors and other people. And I hope you enjoy getting to know them a little bit. And no further ado, I'm going to ask Rusty Lundgren to come up and share for a couple minutes.
Good. I think, okay. I'll try and stay in the camera and still. Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me to this, and especially thanks to David. My name is Rusty Lundgren. My background, so I am a mechanical engineer by training. I spent my career with the company Daimler Trucks North America. Started working in Germany and then traveled all over with the company for 17 years. And then I was introduced or became interested in mobile home parks. And in 2015, very end of 2015, purchased my first mobile home park. In 2017, then they added a park, 2017. I give up my full-time job to focus on mobile home parks full time. I've since grown to 6 communities, 325 lots total at this point over the last few years. Had the pleasure to have worked with David, and he really encouraged me to start working with investors. So relatively small player, but still focused to grow. So our goals are to reach 1,000 lots in the next few years, and coming from 0, that's pretty aggressive for us. As you'll see, some of our other friends here are growing even faster. So yeah, sorry, parks, I'm primarily focused Michigan and Ohio, open to Indiana, but very involved, like boots on the ground, self-manage and things like that. So like to stay close to home, which for me is Michigan. So within driving distance of my home base is kind of our goal. And so, yeah, focus there. Michigan, Ohio is where my parks currently are, and open to Indiana as well. Did I cover everything? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. David, thank you. This is an honor to be able to be here. I'm really appreciative of this. So my name's Andrew. I have a fairly unique story. I started out flipping houses and wholesaling residential properties around Central Florida, where I'm from. And through that, I came across some individual mobile homes that I was able to purchase, and I didn't even know what I was going to do with them. So I was able to get them for, there was 2 homes that were like manufactured in the mid 90s. And I got them off of a yellow letter I sent out to buy a single family house. Long story short, I went and I paid $2,200 and I got the titles, and I came home and I got on YouTube and I typed in how to make money with mobile homes. And I found this gentleman named Lonnie Scruggs, who wrote a book called Deals on Wheels. And he basically taught people how to, buy homes and then sell them on contract, for payments. So I did that with these 2 homes and was astounded by the demand for the product. So then I did that 19 more times. And through that process, I was able to meet some park owners who encouraged me and said, hey, you really should look at owning the real estate and not just the personal property, which is the homes, because there's tax benefits, you can get leverage and things like that. So I had an aha moment, and I was fortunate enough where I had some income at that time. So I was able to focus solely on mobile home parks, and I started marketing directly to owners. I went to a couple seminars and this MHP boot camp, which is like the main educational event for mobile home park investing in the space. And I was fortunate enough to meet a single LP investor at one of those events, who was actually a pretty high up gentleman that works for Goldman Sachs. And he said, hey, I don't have the time to do the operations, but I'll bring the money and you do the work. So we did a single property on the outskirts of St. Louis, and we were able, it was an absolute home run of a deal. We were able to, I moved up there, we infilled, we were able to, add value and increase the NOI, and, pay back all of the initial capital through a refinance at month 18. And then he gave me more money. He's like, here, go do this again. So, 5 mobile home parks later, we kept repeating the process with that same investor and kept having really good results. So then after that, friends and family wanted to get involved, and I was able to, raise some money from them. At this point, we've grown, and I've been able to, do individual syndications. And we now have a portfolio of 23 mobile home parks that we've accumulated, which is just over 1,500 lots. We have, quite a few parks in our pipeline that, we raise capital for on an individual basis when they come to the point of raising capital after due diligence. And most of our parks are throughout the Midwest, very similar to Bob's group. We own across 10 states, mainly in Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, and Iowa. And yeah, that's a little about me. Thank you. Yes, yeah. So we have 5 mobile home parks in Michigan under contract right now that we should be raising capital for, in the next few weeks, pending, our final on-site inspections. So, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jeff Cook, Cook Properties. I started in real estate about 20 years ago. I started off with apartments in the city of Rochester, where I was born and raised, Rochester, New York. I got up to about 100 apartments. We were taking care of all the maintenance, all the bookkeeping, everything ourselves. I sold those around 2007, 2008, right before the housing crash. Started buying some commercial properties at that point. Bought my first mobile home park 2008, and since then we just have to continue to buy more and more mobile home parks throughout the ensuing years. Right now we're up to about 28 communities, 2,500 pads, We have another 1,500 pads under contract, consisting of 12 parks, I'm all in upstate New York. We just started a fund for those 12 parks that we have under contract. It's a $20 million raise. We're about halfway into it right now, and we're hoping to have that all wrapped up here in the next 3 weeks to 30 days. So unlike Andrew, I'm only in New York State. Like I said, I was born and raised in New York State, upstate New York. So that's where our expertise is right now. We are looking outside of the state, just looking for some larger portfolios and hoping to expand that way also. I think one of the unique things here about the three of us is that we're all operators, not just syndicators and sponsors. So we've all been there, working underneath homes, helping homes to get set up, doing the bookkeeping, doing the maintenance. So it's one of the things that I think makes us unique and also gives us a unique advantage over some other sponsors. So yeah, sure.
Thank you. Well, I know this is a little bit of a different venue. So I think I'm assuming most of us kind of know the big theme here about, mobile home park space is interesting because it has kind of a supply demand, disequilibrium. You can't really build more mobile home parks, and it's one of the most affordable forms of housing, and we need more affordable housing in our nation. And so, those are the kind of the theses that have attracted me to really want to dive into this space. I guess I just want to open it up for any questions. I think we're going to spend maybe another 10 or 15 minutes on the Zoom call. So maybe if you guys on the Zoom call, you have any questions you'd like to ask of our guests, and then we'll probably just have some time here, with the in-person group after that. Does that work out?
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay. So yeah, if Pete or Neil or Steve, and I don't know, is it Carol?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Or Carol, if you guys have any questions you'd like to ask.
So if in the current environment, somebody's unable to pay their lot rent, but they own the home, how do you deal with that?
So we're in a special case in New York. I like to say trial by fire. So right now we can't evict. There's a moratorium until May or June, I think, right now, on evictions. There's a national moratorium, and I think New York State right now is either a month or two after that. So right now we point everyone to, there's various assistance organizations out there. There's money available from the state and from the federal government to help them to pay their lot rent. Right now, our collections are more or less the same as they were this time last year before COVID started. They're maybe a point and a half lower than they were prior to COVID. So we're not seeing a whole lot of impact. Our occupancy has been great. Our demand is great. We bring a lot of new homes into our parks every year, and they're rented or sold before they're completed. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything separate.
Obviously, COVID is kind of this black swan event in the states that we own in, which are, more landlord friendly than the state of New York. Typically, if a tenant can't pay lot rent and they own the home, we would file for eviction, and that process, say like in the state of Indiana, for example, it can take 3 weeks to, maybe 4 weeks. And then, then we would file for abandonment on the home unless the tenant would have given us the title, on their way out. Sometimes we can do like a cash for keys type of program. And then if we have to file for abandonment, that's usually another 30 to 60 days. So at the end of that, we would own the home and have a title to it, and then we could resell that home to another resident that would then pay lot rent. So that kind of gives a little backstory as well.
And how much does it cost to move a home? Because I'm sure if they can't pay their lot rent, they sure as hell can't afford to move that mobile home, right? That's
Exactly. So, yeah, how much would it cost to move a home? You know, because they can't pay lot rent, the chances of them moving is very low. So I read a statistic the other day from MHI that said that 98% of mobile homes are never moved from the initial spot they're installed on. And that's because it costs between $5,000 and $10,000 to move these things. And that's even if you're just moving it down the street because of all the utility hookups and, you know, the block level tie down. It's just very expensive. So it's cost prohibitive.
And I would think they're going to do everything they can to figure out how to pay that, whatever it is, 300, 500 bucks before they, I mean, they probably sell their kids before they, before they let the, you know, abandon the home.
Yeah, you know, and it kind of comes down to condition, you know, at a certain point, some of these older homes that are like pre-HUD, which is, you know, 1976, you know, the homes that were built before then that are kind of, you know, on the final years of their, you know, life expectancy, you know, a lot of people could abandon those, and then, you know, you can either get those, and a lot of people will just haul them out and bring in new homes on those lots to bring in new inventory.
So Andrew, how often has this happened to you?
Like an eviction?
Yeah, I mean, where you got to the point where you had to evict somebody.
Yeah, so, you know, being in the business, you know, about 5 years now, I'd say, you know, it's every month there's someone in process. You know, our collections have remained at 95%, you know, plus or minus through COVID in the last year. But there's always, you know, there's always some that are, you know, the 5%, the final 5% make us work for it. So there's a little extra work needed there. But to give an exact number, I think it just really is based on the whole portfolio.
What are your typical lease terms for these, for the lot rent? Are they a year leases, month to month? How do those work?
Yeah, so this question was one of the typical lease terms. So maybe you can jump in on that one, Rusty.
Sure. For new residents, we typically sign and are you talking like how much is a monthly payment, like lot lease?
Well, no, the term of the lease, how long are they there? Are they making a long-term commitment?
We typically sign 1-year leases to new customers, and then it goes month to month after that. So we don't renew annual leases for many of the same reasons Andrew just explained. Is they rarely leave, as so turnover is very low. And yeah, that's so in our business, we typically go month to month after a year lease expires.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I'm not sure who to direct it to. In a lot of cases in these older parks, you buy the park, you come in, you clean it up, you spruce it up, new signs, new this, new that, and then hope to raise the rent. Is that still sustainable given COVID and unemployment and what's going on?
I'll answer for myself, but I think it's similar for the others. During the COVID period, we really have not, especially from March until now, implemented rent increases. Our company is very conservative on rent increases, so we don't go in and do major jumps in rent. In the most case, it would be in the 35. We haven't done one more than $35 a month, but that would be after, say, completely repaving a community and investing $100,000 in asphalt. So there's a strong investment that we show the community if we do raise rents. I'll let the others share their thoughts on that as well. Sure.
Yeah, so during the last year, we did put our rent increases on hold. We just after the first of the year just sent out new notices to increase rents and get back on schedule. You know, with that being said, lot rents across the country, there was a Duke economist that did a study on our space specifically, and his results stated that lot rents across the country are about $40% under market at what they could be. And that's pretty interesting because, you know, they compare it to like the C and D grade apartments, because that's typically like what our competition would be. And, you know, that's less than 50% of what a 2-bedroom apartment would rent for.
We did a rent raise for January of this year of 3%. Looking at our numbers, looking at our office, and looking at our infill with new homes, if you didn't read the newspaper, you wouldn't know that COVID was going on. We really have not seen a lot of impact. So
It's interesting.
yeah,
And what is sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you that, you know, what is the average rent for all of you guys, just portfolio wide roughly? And then also, how many is there a typical average of, I'm sure by default, no pun intended, you end up owning some homes, but that's not really the goal. It's, you really just want to do the lots. But what is the average of X percent are just land only, land rent only, and then some of the mobile homes you're getting rent for the lot and the home?
So our average lot rent is going to be, probably our lowest is high 300s. Our highest is going to be pushing 500. So on average, we're probably, you know, low to mid 400s. Our percentage of park-owned homes versus just tenant-owned homes is about 70% tenant-owned and 30% park-owned homes. None of us want to own the homes. It's unfortunately a necessary evil of the business. Sometimes you take homes back from residents that aren't paying their rent. They'll do a cash for keys, like Andrew said, or they may just leave, and then we take the home back. We also do. We're very aggressive on our infill, so we bring a ton of new homes into our parks. So in those situations, 8 or 9 times out of 10, we're renting them, so we continue to own them. The other 1 or 2 times we are selling them. So it's a necessary evil to get the lot rent. Typically, if we do bring a new home in and we're renting it, our rent's going to be anywhere between $900 to $1,100 a month, and that includes our lot rent. So the home rent is going to be anywhere between $500 and $600 per month.
Jeff, are you having any problems with supply chain issues with new mobile homes?
It's a big problem. We right now, if we ordered a new home, we're out into the fall of 21. Fortunately, I guess we saw it coming. We ordered 100 and we're up to 120 homes for 2021. We've taken delivery, I think, only on about 20 of them or so. So we still have a lot more to come for this year. So we're okay for this year. Probably sometime this summer, we'll place another large order that probably won't get fulfilled until after the first of the year. We're seeing supply constraints on every front. One of our plow trucks just went down and outside of Rochester and Buffalo, and they told us to get a new work truck, plow truck. It's 10 months, brand new, 10 months.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. That's a surprise. So what do you do in the interim?
For plowing, we'll just sub it out. We only got another month or 6 weeks of winter, so.
And what about the new homes that you're waiting on, the 100 new homes? Do you just try to limp along with the older ones and put Band-Aids on them and do what you can, or how do you handle the lack of the new inventory?
Yeah, so the new homes for us are value add. So it's not like they're replacing anything. They're just coming into empty lots.
Okay.
But they're going to be peppered out. The delivery is going to be peppered here over the next 6 months.
Got it.
So in Colorado, there's definitely talk in the legislature about more regulation of mobile home parks, a lot of objections from the residents to the way that parks are being managed and so on. I'm certainly not reflecting on what you guys are doing, but I see in Colorado lots of talk about legislative activity, and I just wondered what you're seeing and what you think about that.
I think it's different throughout the country. In New York State, like I said, trial by fire, we're under rent control right now. They passed it in summer of 2019. We're allowed a 3% increase per year. We can go up to 6% if we can document capital expenditures. The only recourse that the residents have is they have 90 days to challenge that. But beyond that, there's a couple other minor things with legislation in New York State that went along with rent control. But really the big thing is the rent control. I think that's gonna, at least in New York State, it certainly helped to eliminate some of that, I don't know, predatory rent increases, I guess you could say. But it's much different in some of the other states, and like Andrew and Rusty in different states.
Yeah, I can speak on that. In some of the states that we own in, there are operators getting bad names because they're buying these assets, they're overpaying for them, and then they're jacking rents up to unsustainable levels. And it's just sad all around because it's just not good for the business and it's not good for our reputation. But I do think that lot rents are under market across the asset class. But the main thing that is unique about this asset class is that 70% of these assets are owned by mom and pops. So compared to a lot of other asset classes, these mom and pops have owned these assets for 20, 30 years, and there's a lot of deferred maintenance, and they're not squeezing the juice out of them that they could be because they're using them as retirement vehicles. So when we come in and we implement professional management and repave the roads, fix up the occupancy issues and trim the trees and put in new mailboxes, it justifies a rent increase, and a lot of our residents understand that and are actually okay with it because of the benefits that they're getting.
Right.
Guys, is it okay if I just kind of turn the computer to the crew and then let the crew ask some questions also?
Sure.
All right.
Of course. Oh, there's like a room full of people there. Huh.
Wow.
Maybe more specifically, what percentage of the time does it get mistreated, and what's your recourse on that?
Can you say the question over so the question, if I can summarize it correctly.
We can't hear what the dialogue is.
Okay, I'll repeat the question.
Okay, good.
Or summarize the question. So the question is, when we bring in a new home into a park and either sell or rent it, the question is, or rent it, what happens if the home isn't taken care of, or what's our experience? Did I summarize that properly? In my experience, when we bring in new homes, a lot of times we do rent it because we want that renter to pay more than lot rent, and it absorbs some of the initial depreciation of a manufactured home. Then 5 years later, our plan is to sell it at a much more reasonable price, and then the tenant owns it. In our experience, with a brand new home, it's like a Class A apartment, so we ask a premium rent for the area. So we attract folks who would normally rent a really nice apartment, and so we set that rent relatively high compared to a used unit. And so we've been able to attract better tenants with better income and things like that. So where our normal rent may be $650, $675, a brand new home, we would push closer to $1,000 a month and get the better tenants. But everything, you can try and do everything right, you still can get a bad tenant. In that case, the newer homes they're easier to repair, so they're much better built. They use some drywall products, so you go in and make the repairs. And if you're renting it, you can also spec it, say, all vinyl flooring. So if the carpet, which would typically be damaged, you don't have, it's all vinyl, so you can turn it over for less than some of the older homes. That answers it. Yeah.
You mentioned appreciation, and we got into different schedule of depreciation?
Sure. So the question, did you hear that? Or the question is about the depreciation schedule. What is the depreciation schedule for mobile homes and or mobile home parks? Because both right. And do either one of you better capable to answer that?
Yeah, sure.
How we do it.
Sure. So with mobile home parks, the depreciation schedule on average is around 17 years. And you usually can depreciate about 70% of the purchase price. So, you know, you buy an asset, I don't have to do the math, but, you know, buy it for $1 million, that's 700 grand over 17 years would be this phantom expense on our P&Ls that we're really thankful for.
Sure.
Oh, wow. No, awesome. Can you each maybe talk a little bit about your tenant base? Because I think my experience firsthand is that there's lots of different parks and different profiles. Two of my dad's 3 parks were seniors. They were one of the people steady as can be, the pressure was Bible. One park was different. And it was brutal. But in some ways great. So first question. Second question is, can you talk a little bit about wait lists and new tenants? Because you talk about turning people over, generating rents, what does that look like? It's one thing to say nationally the market is undervalued and underpriced, but what does it look like? And then third question is just a plug for a Boulder company, but it's a bigger issue maybe. There's a water heater business here in North called Metron Farming.
Houston.
Are you guys customers?
Yes. Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Awesome. I was going to ask because that's the ability to charge back, right? Something to add. So cool. Forget that.
Very cool. Yeah. Bill Baird is the sales rep we've worked with. And what's cool about, so he brought up there's sub meters that you can buy that actually are read off of a radio read, and they will email you if they get high usage. So if a toilet's running because the flapper's broke, you can get a notification right away instead of waiting until you get your bill 30 days later that your water has excessive usage. So that's a really cool. Metron Farnier is what that company is called. And they also have master meters. So like they put them, you can put them on every mobile home, but you can also put it on your main. So if your usage is, higher than it normally is based off of a monthly average, you're notified right away. So it's just, I love Metron Farnier. It's very cool. But to go back on your first 2 points, number one, yeah. So he had 2 questions. One was, what is the type of parks that, we own? And to comment on that, it depends. We have one park in Arkansas, in Mountain Home, Arkansas, which is like this hidden little retirement community. There's a lot of, 55 and older tenants in that community. It's mainly double wides and, very, very nice community. And then we have actually probably, let's say about half of our all age communities are mainly Hispanic residents. And, without going too deep into the racial divide, they're amazing tenants and they pay on time. And, that's I would say kind of 2 of our kind of targets. The second question. Correct. Yeah. So we have, parks all over, and I'd say probably 1/3 of our tenants across the board are on fixed incomes, Social Security or so forth. And that we noticed quite a bit during COVID, they were paying, on the 2nd of the month every month, and there was no issue. So, But then there are some that worked at restaurants and things like that that were, you know, put on unemployment, and then, you know, that money that they were making was better than going back to work. So they'd rather just stay on that $600 a week. Yeah. What was the question again? Demand. So we commented on the demand and how we manage the wait lists for people that would like to move into communities. So what's really unique is a lot of the parks are owned by these mom and pops who don't have a website, don't have any marketing. They just have a sign out front. And when we take it over, you know, we'll set up a Google Places page, we'll set up a website. You know, some of them, the managers have Facebook pages for. So we will keep a list, like a waiting list of people that want to move into the community. But a lot of times it's not like people have homes that they want to bring into our communities. A lot of times it's when a home opens up, let us know, and they would like to, you know, get financing or get like a down payment and you know, make payments to buy a home that's already in the park. So maybe that helps. Demand is, yeah, off the charts. I mean, it's insane. We always in due diligence do a test ad where we'll put out a listing and, you know, put it out for 7 days, engage, you know, the demand and how many responses we have. And then we'll send like an automated message to them that says, hey, you know, call this number, you know, if you're interested in setting up an appointment. And then we kind of gauge those calls as, you know, how good our demand is for that market. And, you know, we won't buy something if we feel that the demand is not strong enough. Some of the markets for sure, yeah, but yeah.
Sure, I'll go. So my experience is very similar. So our parks are very similar to Andrew's. So I would say 90% family, 10% retirees, and then similar to his, we have one park, very nice. It looks like a subdivision, mostly double wides, chalet style carports. So that would be like a upper end property. But then the bulk, the other 80% of it is affordable housing. So most of our residents, they work in minimum wage positions. They were very little affected by COVID. So they were always working at McDonald's. They continue to work in nursing homes and things like that. So they weren't in, when you picture Michigan, you picture automotive, but they weren't plant workers. Those folks, they live in the next you know, level up of housing. So that's ours are, yeah, I would say affordable, mostly family. And we don't have the Hispanic population where we're at, but mostly families.
Rusty?
Yes.
Did any operators have any mobile home parks in Houston, Texas, or in Texas during the recent freeze? And if so, how are those impacted?
Good question. We had that question this morning at another meeting we had, and no, none of us have parks in Texas.
Okay.
Not that we're not all experienced with freezing, because we have a real hard winter, and we certainly know how to prepare for it. But thankfully, we at this point don't have parks in Texas.
Thanks.
What about the market for the parks themselves? What's going on there, and has COVID changed it at all, both as buyers and as sellers? I don't know if you've done any selling, but presumably you think about what the market would be like if you sold.
The market for parks is what you're asking, right?
Well, really, but for you, you're mostly buyers, obviously. So what's happening on that side?
Should we back up just 1 second and then go to that question?
I mean, I just added what Andrew and Rusty said. Most of my parks are 2-star, 3-star, 4-star parks on a 5-star system. One being like, you wouldn't want to go to in the daytime, boarded up windows, and 5 being, community centers, a pool, concrete gutters, just, beautiful, beautiful. And most of ours are in the, you know, like I said, the 2, 3, and 4-star range. For waiting lists, we do have waiting lists, and when we have a home come available, we just go to the next person if they're still looking. You know, we vet them, and if they're not, if they've already found something, we just go on to the next one.
Pete's question was, how has the COVID situation affected the mobile home park market, right, from buying and selling? In my experience, yes, we all are buyers, and it's gotten a lot of attention in this year, which has kind of started to compress cap rates and things like that, because I think across the board, they've all performed very well. So our collections are very close to normal. And we had some cases where during COVID, especially when stimulus checks came out, they were better than ever. We had people pay ahead for the first time in history when the checks came out. And so we had some months of better performance. So in my opinion, and the others can speak as well, parks have gotten a lot of attention. There's a lot more buyers out there right now, makes it a little more competitive to buy.
Agreed, yeah, agreed, yeah.
So how do you screw it up? I've seen people screw up on homes. So I just be curious from your perspective, one of the things that you're looking at is how you structure the way you're running these, managing them. What are you really most concerned about in terms of making sure that you have
Well, to me, I don't know that one too, because the spectrum, I think, of the opportunities to invest in this field has broadened the past 5 years. And the size of the operators and the value of that coming, I think that's also grown a little bit. So I think on that a little bit, how do you guys differentiate different, where do you fit on that spectrum? And it seems like there's going to be an investment opportunity coming out there with current right now. And so why are those opportunities bigger than some of the bigger players? Sorry to jump in on that, but
Well, no, for myself and our fund right now, the returns are better. Yeah, sure.
Can you just say,
Can you repeat the question?
Leah's asking, what can go wrong and what can
So we asked, what can go wrong with a mobile home park? In essence, how can we screw it up? And then, what was your question again? Similar. What differentiates? Sure. I mean, you can certainly screw a park up, like you said, it does happen. I think our advantage, I think all of our advantages here is that we're not just sponsors and syndicators, we're operators. We've started at the bottom. We know how much things cost, what needs to be done to run a successful mobile home park. My brother, who's back in Rochester right now, is our COO, and he's in charge of all of our daily operations. We're just really fixated on operations. I take care of the acquisitions and the financing, and he takes care of the operations. It's obviously super important to just be as efficient as possible. The other thing too is, you don't make we make money when we buy the parks. So, being that prices are high right now, we're as diligent as we can. We have a whole list of items that we have to check off, before we buy a property. If there's things we don't like, if we can't get them fixed by the seller or get an appropriate credit, there's deals that sometimes that we'll walk away from. As far as the differentiation from other sponsors, I guess kind of along the same lines, we're operators, we're vertical, we don't use any third-party management. Everything is done in-house, all through our own employees. We're, on my particular fund, we're offering 80-20 splits, 10 to 14% anticipated returns. Year one, we're 9%. I think by year 2, year 3, we're up into the
12, 13%. Around year 4, year 5, we'll have about 2/3 of your capital returned through a refinance. So, I mean, we're closer to the deals. I think it provides a big advantage for us as compared to some of the larger, more established sponsors. So.
What is the long-term hold projection of these assets?
For me, we're doing a 10-year hold on this primarily because of the financing. We're going through Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So those are all 10-year terms on the loans. But again, 2/3 of your capital is going to be returned within 4 or 5 years. So.
And then at the end of the 10 years, is the anticipation to sell it and to to another operator that continues on, or is there a long-term view of a redevelopment of the land?
Oh, yeah. So is it maybe what's going to happen in 10 years? Sell or whatever, redevelopment of the land. I think most of our parks, the highest and best use is a mobile home park. My plan in 10 years with this particular fund would be to do a fund roll up or an UPREIT where we can have some people that want to stay in can stay in and go to another fund that we sell into, or they can sell and pay their taxes and go home, take their money and go home. So.
I could comment back on these two questions, if you don't mind. So ways that you could mess up a mobile home park. I would say number one is due diligence. Due diligence is very involved, specifically with the utility infrastructure, because that's really where a lot of our improvements to the land are. And a lot of these mobile home parks throughout the Midwest are on private utilities, wells, wastewater treatment plants, septic systems, things like that. And, those are very expensive to, if they go bad. So we spend a lot of time and money up front in due diligence, making sure that those are fine. And then also operations is a big piece of this. We're buying 5 parks right now in Michigan from an operator that uses a third-party management company, and their expense ratio is 80%. So of their gross income, they're spending 80% of it. And it's just foolish, there's just a lot of room to reduce those expenses. But the third-party management with these particular assets just has not fine-tuned it to really maximize it. Where we see the opportunity in the marketplace from myself and the syndications that I do is that there's a lot of big players out there in terms of like funds and private equity, Blackstone, you name it. So we kind of go after a specific niche between 50 and 99 lots, and we go after parks that are in more secondary, tertiary, Midwestern markets, and that's been our target and our focus is those type of assets that are on public utilities preferably, and have the ability to get good financing on them. So.
I think it's good as long as you have good operations. You can just have money and buy big parks. But the big parks,
Yeah, and I think what's also different about us, as mentioned, is we're very hands-on with the value add process. So filling vacant lots is by far the hardest value add component in this business that there is, because number one, sourcing the homes, and then number two, transporting them and installing them. Usually the contractors you're working with are not the most high-level professional. Usually those are mom and pops too that have a tow truck and kind of hook it up to the truck and we'll bring it in. And it's tough to set a timeline of how you're going to infill a park when you're dependent upon a third party like that. So I also own a transport company that also installs out of St. Louis, and we only install for our own projects. So for this Michigan project, my transporter with the toter truck and all is going to go live in Michigan until we bring in 78 homes and they're all installed on those lots. So that makes it a little different.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, these guys covered everything as well. One thing I think unique to me is we like to look at smaller markets, so similar size, 50 to 100 pads, but where a lot of the bigger guys are looking at big MSAs, so 50,000, 100,000, or those. We like to look at towns that could be smaller, MSAs that could be smaller, with the caveat there are few lots in the area. So our bet is if you had a town of 5,000 and there are only 100 lots in the town, that it could be a better bet than a bigger metro with oversupply of lots. So that's one of our biggest metrics is smaller towns with very few lots. And then if that market proves itself as expected, then we try and buy all the lots in that area. Because like our bet is there'll always be, say, 100 people out of 1,000 or 5,000 that need affordable housing, regardless of the economy. So it's being the only fish in town. Okay. Sure. For the park, you're talking over like the Fannie Freddie, I think you guys have more experience. It has to meet certain criteria as far as size. A lot of our deals fall under that, and purchase price, right? So I think the Fannie Freddie and the really reasonable interest rates come when the loan amount is over 2 million, maybe a little lower, like $1 million and above. And some of our deals fall below that 2 million level. So we still go to local or regional banks. But rates are good in general, but the really premium stuff is when you get into bigger. But on the other side is on the smaller parks and smaller markets, the cap rates could be much higher. So you could have a larger spread, even though the financing terms aren't as favorable as a big deal. So
yeah, the agencies prefer to lend on markets, 50,000 in MSA. So that's what we go after is the agency debt upon refinance, but they have metrics like it has to be 90% occupied or more. You have to have 20% or less park-owned homes. You have to have 2 parking spaces of off-street parking. So you have to, upon acquisition, you take these assets and you try to get them to that level so that then you can refinance into that, longer 10 or 12-year loan that's 3% interest.
It seems like the biggest obstacle challenge to growth is getting the 70% in the marketplace non-owners to say yes, I will sell it to you. So it's not a question for all of you, one of you can take this. If you don't have the charisma in the time or rectory, you can get an owner to say, yeah, I'll sell it to you. I mean, how do you break through that? How do you persuade mom and pops to say, okay, I'm going to let it go?
So just to summarize the question is, how do you get mom and pops to sell to you, essentially, right? And in my experience, and then we all have these because that's, I think, primarily how we've bought the parks, is get to know them. It's crazy, the stories that come of it. They have to identify with you and want to sell. And a lot of times with the moms and pops, if a large company approaches them, they immediately shut them down. They want to know who the park is going to, who's going to take care of it. They'll drive through it every week for the rest of their lives. And that's my experience. Very strong relationships with the seller after that, because in many cases, they built them.
So you appreciate that.
100%. That's like our secret sauce is, like big guys are, fact, or emailing offers. I'm knocking on the door, trying to have lunch or dinner with them. Because we have all very similar.
Yeah, I have very similar experiences with the mom and pops. I think a lot of them are just reaching that age where they were doing the rehabs themselves. They were fixing the plumbing leaks. They were mowing the grass. They were plowing the snow. And now that they're getting into their later years, they're reaching their capacity, and their kids don't want these things. We bought in several parks from the next generation that kind of let the thing go, and it's just that the mom and pops are just ready to retire.
One more thing on how long that, so I'll be in New York State. A lot of the national operators either are leaving New York State or just not coming to New York State anymore. So that's allowing us to put up some more parks in New York State. I just had a conversation with someone this morning that they didn't want to sell to an out-of-state person. They want to sell to a local person. For that same reason, they want someone who's going to take care of the park.
So you moved there.
Yeah. Well, it was an hour away. It was an hour away from my house. So yeah. But yeah, it's turn around and
Do you ever get involved in trying to develop new parks? To supply insurance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I personally have not. I know that you know, you're looking into doing that. The problem comes with the zoning because the local municipalities don't, you know, not in my backyard initiative. And then also from an economic standpoint, you know, the local municipalities are not going to get as much tax dollars off of a mobile home community as they would off of, you know, a brick and mortar, multifamily or single family housing development. So it's tough to get those approved, but yeah, there are some development happening, but it's few and far between compared to the number that are torn down every year.
Are there any like national companies that do that, develop parks, or just like small?
Not that I know of.
I mean, I know sometimes it's hard, right? They're trying to do some parks in Texas. But it's very rare. I mean, it's like a unicorn. I mean, expansions, some of those guys might have a free zone where they can add 10 points per lot. It is happening, but that's a horrible hazard to advertise.
Exactly.
The city of Boulder has this one big thing that it's infuriating.
Hey guys, I think we're gonna just kind of close up shop, but thank you so much for participating and just, I think you have these guys' contact info in those bios if you want to get a hold of them, or me, if you want to ask me for my experience with these guys, just send me an email or call me, okay?
Great, thanks.
Thanks,
David.
Thanks, everybody.
See you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon.